Here's 3 hypothetical price scenarios that I'm taking a look at when it comes to PancakeSwap's native token called Cake, and this is maybe assuming if there is maybe even a fully fledged type of altcoin season during this cycle, which I get it. As of right now, altcoins aren't necessarily doing the best. But again, this is in a situation where maybe there is an altcoin season. This is what I'm thinking about. However, even besides that, when I take a look at the first hypothetical price scenario when it comes to Cake, that is maybe the idea of $30. Now, that's around an 11.5x from here, and the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, it'd be nearly 11 billion. The reason why this wouldn't necessarily surprise me is because I like the fundamentals of PancakeSwap, and let me explain why. PancakeSwap is a BNB chain-based decentralized exchange. Why do I think it's pretty cool? It's because, of course, we take a look at something like BNB, which reached a new all-time high during this cycle. Also on top of that as well, if I take a look at the BNB chain, it's still very popular, and oftentimes when I think about a decentralized exchange and I think about, the BNB chain, the thing that comes to mind, at least for me, is PancakeSwap. It still has that popularity. Now, granted, something like Uniswap, which I think arguably is more popular than something like PancakeSwap, but you know what? Again, just when I think about the BNB chain, I usually think about PancakeSwap. However, kind of the cherry on top of that as well is that I kind of like the progression of the BNB chain, fundamentally speaking. So overall, I'm a fan of PancakeSwap. Now, when it comes to PancakeSwap, though, sometimes you like to say, oh, but who cares about, a decentralized exchange? Well, to me, I've taken a look at some data. Like, for instance, if I take a look at the decentralized finance market, according to Grandview Research, it is predicted to reach over $200 billion by 2030. So I find that very impressive, actually. And again, there's many decentralized exchanges out there. I'm totally aware of that. But when I take a look at the established nature of PancakeSwap, when I take a look at the BNB chain, when I take a look at its popularity, to me, in an event where maybe, let's say there's a fully fledged type of altcoin season, the idea of maybe Cake at the price of $30 wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Now, the second hypothetical price scenario that I do want to take a look at when it comes to Cake is maybe the idea of $33. That would be nearly a 13x from here, and the market cap at that point would be nearly 12 billion if, again, we were to consider the current circulating supply. The reason why this wouldn't necessarily surprise me is because if we take a look at Uniswap, right, which a lot of people consider as kind of like the most popular decentralized exchange out there. However, even besides that, back in 2021, Uni, which is its native token, that reached a market cap of over 20 billion. And again, that was years ago. Now, granted, I still think that Uniswap is more popular right now than something like PancakeSwap. But if it was able to reach that years ago, again, Uni, which is Uniswap's native token, maybe the idea, if there was, let's say, a fully fledged type of altcoin season during the cycle, again, nearly a $12 billion market cap wouldn't necessarily surprise me when it comes to Cake, but only time will tell. And again, this is just my perspective. It's not such a ridiculous market cap the way you take a look at it. Now, if the market cap needed was like, 100 billion or something like that, then of course I wouldn't even want to take a look at that. But that is a totally different case. However, again, this doesn't seem that unrealistic, but this is just my perspective. However, the third and final hypothetical price scenario that I do want to take a look at is maybe the idea of $35. Nearly a 13.5x from here, market cap at that point would be around 12.5 billion if we were to consider the current circulating supply. Now, if I take a look at the factors currently, like how there's over 600 million crypto owners supposedly, which is, again, supposedly more than ever before in history, I take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, and I just take a look at kind of the popularity of the BNB chain. To me, maybe $35 wouldn't necessarily surprise me, but when it comes to the timeline, some people like to ask me, okay, when is the timeline? However, when it comes to that, I don't think I'll be able to know the exact moment in time because how can I? But at the same time, at least I can take a look at some clues in the past. Like, for instance, historically speaking, altcoins usually, as a worst-case scenario, they typically peak around a year and a half after a Bitcoin halving event. So a year and a half from April of last year, which was when the last Bitcoin halving event happened, it'd actually be October this year. Now, we're so close to October, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen at that time because that is just based off history. But even if hypothetically, for whatever reason, if it extends, like if it ever even wants to happen, right? Again, the altcoin season, like be it if it extends all the way until March of next year. Like, who knows, right? Whenever that timeline is, whenever that exact time, again, is, if it ever even does, it's going to be beyond my control. And again, each cycle is going to be different. So again, even though that is based off history, it could be different this time around. So I can just only control myself here, and that is just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting, and that's it. I'm just staying patient. And I'm not telling anyone to do anything, by the way, but this is just my perspective. And, in the meantime, things can go up and down. Like, it is just beyond my control, right? I mean, the market's going to do what it wants to do. But again, if I believe in a project, all I do is stay patient and just wait, and that's pretty much about it, and that's what I'm going to do. However, again, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but this is just my outlook when it comes to PancakeSwap. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.